So was the Fantastic Four First Steps movie? Don't say it. Fantastic? Oh boy. Welcome to PK's Reviews, where we discuss all things superhero and comic book related. This is my full review for the 2025 Fantastic Four First Steps movie. Warning, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, now would be a good time to click out. I was actually able to watch this movie in a theater packed full of superfans at San Diego Comic-Con 2025, which is always so much fun because you know you're in good company when you're watching a movie in San Diego during Comic-Con weekend. I was totally blown away by this movie. It wasn't a perfect movie, but it felt like a perfect Fantastic Four movie in terms of its tone, its design, and its overall storytelling. The cars, the clothing style, the furniture, the buildings was all retrofitted to feel like an old era, but they incorporated futuristic technology to give you that retro futurism feel to the whole movie. It was a smart choice for them to put this movie in a different universe so that it's completely separate and unburdened from all the events and all the characters from the other MCU movies. So it's basically kind of a fresh start or a clean slate coming in, which just felt like a breath of fresh air. Especially in recent years when we've gotten a weird mix of misfires and some hits out of the MCU, and it's just been inconsistent and kind of all over the place. So they drop you in pretty early in their journey. They give you a little bit of their origin, but they don't even show them transforming, which is fine. We've seen that before. We don't need to see them physically transform and get their powers all over again. The pacing of the movie is pretty brisk, but it did not feel rushed at any point. It kept things going, kept things entertaining, but at a comfortable pace. The plot itself was relatively simple. Basically, you have the Fantastic Four comfortably enjoying their lives, using their powers for good, saving their city on a regular basis, eating dinner together, saying hi to people casually on the street, starting a family, having a baby, and then suddenly the Silver Surfer shows up, warns them about Galactus, and they have to stop Galactus with a plan to trap him. That's basically it. Pretty simple and straightforward, but it worked. Let's talk about the cast. So Pedro Pascal playing Reed Richards. I was reluctant at first. He just didn't seem like a Reed Richards type. He didn't really look like a traditional Reed Richards, but we know Pedro Pascal is a great actor. He's played pivotal roles in gigantic franchises and has crushed every single one of those roles. So for me to doubt him for a second was pretty foolish because he definitely nailed Reed Richards in this movie. I mean, he was able to pull off all the characteristics, the intelligence, the responsible husband and father, the meticulous and thoughtful leader. And it was really interesting to see the dichotomy that he struggled with, because on the one hand, he had his responsibilities and duties as a father and husband, but on the other hand, his intellect forced him to think logically about all the contingency plans and what the most logical solution would be. Those things were in conflict, and to see him play that out was very believable because you can understand the dilemma that he was in and his personality kind of dictating how he approached it. Those scenes where Reed Richards is speaking with Sue Storm and they're debating and arguing about what the right thing to do is kind of forces the audience to ask those questions themselves. What would they do? Pedro Pascal did such a wonderful job displaying that internal conflict in his facial expressions and how he delivered his lines and his overall demeanor. And I thought he just nailed it. Vanessa Kirby plays Sue Storm, and I thought she looked perfect for the part. She really brought the heart and soul to this franchise and to this family. And she wasn't afraid to call you out if she had to. So whenever she got upset with Reed Richards, you believed it. And then she had that really nice speech to the general audience that was outside protesting. Her speech was all about, well, look, we're not going to give up our son, but we're also not going to give up on you. We're going to find a way to save you. And that's really what kind of turned the tide to get all those people back on their side in their efforts to defeat Galactus. And then when she had to actually physically confront Galactus as Galactus was trying to take her baby, I mean, you felt the mama bear instincts come out immediately when she used her powers to try to stop him on her own. Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. If you've seen him in Stranger Things, you already know that he was going to be a great fit for Johnny Storm. He was cocky, he was charismatic, he was funny, he was delightfully obnoxious at times. All the qualities that you want in a Johnny Storm. And it was weird, but there are moments when he actually reminded me of Robert Downey Jr., not just in his mannerisms and his quirkiness, but also in his facial expressions. It actually looked kind of similar. Every interaction that he had with any member of the Fantastic Four family was so funny and so delightful. For example, when he's on the Thing's back and he keeps yelling, "Say it, say it," and Ben's like, "No, no, say it." And he finally says, "It's clobbering time." And when he started to realize that Sue was actually pregnant and he got so excited, I mean, he epitomized the funkle because he got so joyful at the thought of being an uncle. More importantly, they gave him something special and meaningful to do, which was to connect with the Silver Surfer, to convince her on a human level that she doesn't have to help Galactus destroy their planet, because he's a smooth talker, right? And his ability to connect with her was what allowed them to ultimately be victorious in their battle against Galactus, because they needed that extra help from the Silver Surfer to come in and push him through that portal. Ebon Moss-Bachrach, who plays the Thing / Ben Grimm. I know him best from The Bear, which he was phenomenal in that show. But I liked how they kind of nodded to his character in that, because that show is all about running a restaurant and cooking. And of course, he had that little scene which we saw in the trailer where he's tasting the sauce or whatever it was and says, "Oh, it's delicious, but I'm going to put a little garlic in it to give it a little zip." And I thought that was a fun play on his character from The Bear. To be honest, I was put off a little bit when I heard his voice in the trailer because it sounded too human. It sounded too much like the actor when we're used to hearing the Thing kind of deep, grisly, grunty voice to kind of match his rocky exterior. But once you get into the movie and you hear his voice for a little bit, it really does grow on you because it allowed the actor to be more relatable, more human. The Thing was actually the most sensitive emotionally out of all the characters. The way he looked at Sue when he realized that she was actually pregnant, and the gentle, soft way in which he asked her about it. The way he interacted with the kids and meeting the lady who was, I guess, running the school. And he just seemed to be the emotional glue for the group. So overall, he just became a very likable character, and I think the voice acting had a lot to do with that. And just a bonus, I love that they made the brow and his overall facial design and his overall size pretty comic book accurate. Julia Garner as this version of Silver Surfer. Now, I know her best from Ozark, which I thought she was amazing in that show. But it seemed like an odd casting choice, not because she was female, but because her character in that Ozark show is so different from what we expect the Silver Surfer character to be like. Silver Surfer is more stoic and kind of void of emotion, whereas her character in Ozark is emotionally all over the place. Kill me! But once you start to see her character, she really does grow on you as well. It allowed Johnny to tap into her emotions on a deeper level and to connect with her and to pull that humanity back out of her that she once had, so that he can convince her that this is not the right path, that this is not what she really wants to do, and that it's not too late to turn back around. When she was using her power, it was great. She was actually pretty intimidating given her speed and agility. It reminded me a lot of the Terminator 2 Liquid Terminator chase scenes, which is some of the best chase scenes we've seen in cinematic history. Galactus. Okay, so I'm really happy that they got away from the big cloud thing that they did in the Rise of the Silver Surfer movie. Here we get a comic accurate Galactus design in all its glory. Purple with the ear things and a lot of detail on his armor, but I thought it looked perfect. Now, some people are going to complain that he's a little too small, but I actually think it's okay to interpret him that way for this movie, because if he was the size of, say, another planet, that would make it very hard for them to have a physical conflict between the Fantastic Four and Galactus. But instead, we shrink him down, so it's more like a X-Men versus Sentinels kind of vibe, because he's big enough to be kind of an intimidating kaiju-like character, but not so big where they can't actually use their powers effectively. So here, they were able to use their powers in a way that required some level of teamwork, which is nice to see as well, them using all their powers in concert and creatively to take him down. I thought the comic accurate suits worked really well with the bright blue and the white and the 4 logos on their chests. This is especially gratifying after the last rendition where they really didn't have matching suits. It was just kind of a ragtag design for each character. I mean, overall, this was a perfect cast with perfect character design, so I don't have any room to complain. It was also kind of fun to see them use their powers very casually, right? So whether it be Johnny Storm flaming on just because the power and lights turned off, or Reed Richards using his stretchy limbs to stabilize his hold of Sue Storm when they're trying to escape from Galactus that first time. Seeing Sue Storm disappear when she was avoiding wanting to talk to someone at that lecture. Or Ben Grimm just picking up a car just for the fun of it. Seeing all those little ways where their powers can be kind of useful in mundane, casual, small situations was a nice touch. So Mole Man makes an appearance, and his character is actually pretty useful because they needed his help to evacuate all the people underground to keep them safe during this battle. Which actually avoids the Man of Steel issue of buildings being crumbled and destroyed left and right and people dying, presumably. So you clear the city, you get all the people underground, then you can have this big epic fight where buildings are being crushed because it's Galactus and he's a giant. Having Mole Man run this underground community was a nice and yes, convenient way to resolve that issue. So this was clearly a superior movie compared to the first 2 franchises. The first one actually wasn't too bad. I think it was on the right path and on the right tone for Fantastic Four, but just got a little too silly and too cartoony at times. The second version tried to do too much to stylize it, make it more gritty and make it different, and it rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way, which I totally get. But this brings us back to the core essence of the Fantastic Four. It gave us that classic Jetsons retro futuristic look and vibe to it. It gave us the fun. It gave us the core characteristics for each character. I thought this was just a nice, well-wrapped, well-done movie featuring a true-to-form Fantastic Four. What about the negative aspects? I honestly don't have a whole lot. I can try to nitpick a little bit. The first one that comes to mind is Galactus not only being smaller, but also being underpowered, right? Because relatively speaking, he was pretty easy to defeat when you just kind of forced him into a portal to transport him. That might be offensive to some people because Galactus is supposed to be an all-powerful being. But for me, it worked well to serve this movie, and I didn't have a big problem with it. They could have done something a little bit more extravagant in terms of how they defeated him. What I did have an issue with was the fact that Galactus seemed kind of stupid to be falling for this trap. I mean, it was very clearly a trap. Hey, come get our baby. And you got all these things that they built over time to trap him. He just shows up and goes for the baby. I mean, there's a part where he reluctantly steps and then pulled his foot back. But even then, he should have had a better plan. Was Silver Surfer too quick when she turned against Galactus? Maybe. I mean, Johnny gave a good speech. He used her language against her and triggered something there. I don't know if that was enough. I felt like there needed to be a little bit more back and forth between Johnny and her for her to be compelled to ultimately turn her back on Galactus and fight him head on to help these people that she just met. Another point that seemed kind of stupid was when they were setting up the traps. Johnny comes in, sweeps the baby, Franklin, and brings Franklin back to their giant skyscraper tower with a giant number 4 on the side of the building when the building's completely empty, and decided to place him in the middle of this giant room, pretty much eye level with Galactus, and expect him not to find the baby? Everybody else was hiding underneath the ground. Why didn't they just bring the baby there? Johnny can fly fast and can fly anywhere. And he decides to just put the baby, a couple miles away from where they're fighting Galactus? Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense. That post-credit scene, Doctor Doom makes an appearance. Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom, although we can't see his face, but presumably that's Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. You do get to see his backside with the cloak, and you do get to see the mask as he's holding it. Doctor Doom is usually the main villain for the Fantastic Four, which is why I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised, and I really can't explain why I was. But the fact that they showed Doctor Doom got me so excited for the Avengers Doomsday movie. I am so optimistic about moving forward with this cast as Fantastic Four. Oh, my overall rating for this movie, I'm going to give it a 90%, which is pretty high. I'm not going to say this is a perfect movie, but for my purposes, it did feel like a perfect Fantastic Four movie with a couple of little nitpicks here and there. But generally speaking, I was just blown away. I thought this was an incredible version of the Fantastic Four family, and I thought the movie was well done, good pacing, good mix of comedy, action, and a lot of charm, right? The characters just brought so much charm. The interactions and dynamics between the characters, so fun, so delightful, and it's a good time at the movie. So I'm looking forward to seeing it again, and I'm looking forward to seeing these characters move forward, and once they merge into the other universes, how they're going to react and interact with some of the other MCU characters. So what are your thoughts? Did you love this movie? What were some of your favorite moments? Who was your favorite character? Was there anything that bothered you about the movie? How'd you feel about Galactus? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see more reviews like this, feel free to subscribe. And until next time, this is PK's Reviews signing off.